I'm Joe Bielawski with Knowledge Services out of Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm J.R. Sloan, CIO for the state of Arizona.
And I'm going to start this off by saying I don't know why, as one of thousands of vendors to state and local government, you ever decided to take a meeting request with Julie, our founder, and myself back in 2020, March of 2020, right?
Yep.
And somehow you took that meeting. Thank you for that. I don't know that I ever really thanked you for that. And the conversation was really around the challenges that the private sector faces with cybersecurity and meeting all of the different state and local government requirements.
Yep.
And you shared with me what?
Well, I was looking at it from my own perspective, right? Some of the struggles that I think state governments were experiencing relative to, as we adopt cloud, as we were, embracing these technologies that were enabling us to do the things that we needed to do to scale our businesses and control our costs and provide better services. We still had to protect that data. It's a shared responsibility when you start engaging with the, cloud service providers. And we needed to have a better methodology for that. We had stood up a program in Arizona that we lovingly called StateRAMP. And we've heard, different iterations along the time, but, we've been running that program. We started it, say 2013, 2014, when we really started, pursuing, the cloud in earnest. And what I had learned by that point of that meeting in 2020 was it's hard. We had, backlog of providers that we needed to get through. We had to work a lot on our processes, not just how do we do the review of the providers from a cybersecurity perspective, but how do you tie that into the procurement and the acquisition processes? How do you work that up front so that you're letting folks know and you're signaling to them that there's a requirement you're going to have to meet? And I just looked at it and said, look, it's taking people away from other more productive work. And it's hard to keep up with the volume, and it was just not sustainable. And for everything that we thought we were doing pretty good at, we knew we still weren't doing continuous monitoring. So we would assess somebody and, check off and say, it looks good. And we would come back to you in 2 to 3 years and we're going to do it again. And so at that point, that's where I said to you, I've looked at the FedRAMP model. That's nice. That's neat. That's interesting. But I don't have something like that at the state level.
And you described the challenges on government, but the other maybe less challenging component is getting budgetary approval and all the resources necessary to build out systems and people to continue the continuous monitoring efforts, right? So as we got together in March, had you ever been involved in a public-private partnership model, anything like this?
So the closest thing would be in Arizona. We have a contract that runs the state voice and data network, right? So that's a pretty close partnership in that at the end of the day, the state has to own responsibility for it, but it's really delivered through a public-private partnership.
Okay.
But I'll say even this is more unique though, because it's really taking something that's not just operating within the state, but operating, I think, at a much larger level. And I'll say one of the things I failed to mention was I saw not just the problems from the state side, but I saw what you were talking about from the private sector side, right? Which is every state you go to as a provider, there's a different rule, or someone's got a different process.
That's right.
And so there was duplication and inefficiency on the private sector side. There was, I'll say inefficiencies on the state side, and we needed a better solution.
Well, and I bring that up because when we met as a private sector person, my thought was, hey, this is a great new business line for this company, right? And I'll never forget that first call that we were on in the midst of COVID, I might add, and learning that government, it was never going to fly as a private sector for-profit solution. And so to be able to pivot really quickly and to gain adoption from not only you, but the rest of the steering committee members was a humbling experience, a scary one, I might also add, because it needed funding and there was no source for recovery of that. But I think looking back 4 years, could you have imagined where we are today?
No, it's amazing. And I credit to, I'll say, all the folks that have been, part of the process. Certainly, all the committee members, right, that came together, have given their time. I'll say folks down in the trenches dealing with peeling apart the various regulatory and compliance and things that I don't go to the level of talking about. But to support this, right, and to create that groundswell of effort, I got to give credit to the private sector supplier community, right? Mm-hmm. They've come in and they've said, yes, this actually does make sense, and they do see value in it, and so that's good as well. And so I think we just, we have a lot of folks that are bringing the right ideas to the table. And I mean, Joe, I got to give you credit. Without your support, I'll say to stand the thing up and help get it going, we wouldn't be where we are.
Well, and I'll turn it right back around, and it's you said all the committee members, the private sector, the both state and local government. It's an experience of a lifetime, and I think we're on a rocket ship, and I look forward to continuing it.
Yeah, look forward to it as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.